G'day, Nick here, Animal Engineering. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I think we're going to focus on getting the rear diff cradle area situated, get that all fabricated and welded in, and then once that's welded in, we can move to doing all the tabs for the control arms and all that kind of stuff. So basically, the rear cradle consists of this piece. So this is the front panel. That should be fairly straightforward. That's 1, 2, 3, like 4 bends, and then hopefully it should slot into spot nicely. I then have this piece which goes behind that piece for the 2 front pickup points for the diff, but I'm going to hold off on this one because, as you can see, it's very thin along the top there, and I'm going to get the diff in and have a bit of a measure up and see if I can actually remake this piece. It's all signed off by the engineer, it's all fully welded around everywhere, so that's kind of just a spacery bit, but I'm not happy with that, and really there's no point. You see how thin that is? That's probably 1/8 of an inch. There's no point in even putting any weld on that really. You just extra weld for nothing at all, no gain. So I'll see if I can redesign this piece a bit thicker. If not, I'll probably just shape it off and weld these 2 sections on, and then add something in between it to brace it up. Then we have the rear diff mount, which is these pieces. So 2 of them. So those are the main pieces. Now, for some reason, when I had it all cut out, I didn't get the top piece. It's got a little bit of surface rust and the scale and all that sort of jazz. So I'm going to go and chuck it in the vinegar. We'll leave it in vinegar overnight, and then we'll see what that's like. So we'll chuck that in some vinegar and pull it out tomorrow morning. So yeah, we'll get that front bit bent up, we'll get that in, we'll get those other pieces in the vinegar. So basically from the computer I've got a 30-degree bend here, 40-degree bend here, and then these 2 bits will have a 30-degree bend here, which should, by the time it's all folded, bring it all together. So we'll mark her up, get a few bends in it, and we'll see how close it is to fitting. Well, there you have it, that's that bit all bent up. Now, one thing that is a bit irritating is this gap. Oh. Little bugger bit me. On the computer, it actually shows it with that gap. I probably should have actually made a bit of a modification on the drawing at the time, but I did not think about it. But anyway, we'll chuck it up on the old frame there. Now, these holes were plotted from the 3D scan, and then obviously this was made as a jig off the actual stud frame, so it is going to be interesting to see how well it goes. So I'll try and set the camera up on an angle where you can see the holes and everything, and we'll have a look. Well, as you can see there, that is fitting as you see there, that is actually fitting really good. The arc between the 2 pieces coming up over the diff, it's like following the contour of that, really nice. The passenger, or our passenger side hole, it's ever so slightly out. Like you can get a bolt through it, but you got to sort of push it through. Whereas I just wanted to be able to go, pop, pop, just straight in, no lube. So I'll clean that up. I'm not going to make any adjustments to that hole right now. We'll wait. There's a little bit of slop in the diff, which I think might be just enough. We might get away with it. So I'll clean that up now, and then we'll get that tacked in. And then once that's tacked in, I'll move forward and we'll start on the rear mount. We'll get that all done, and then we can put the diff in and have a look at that hole then. But that's pretty good. Like, shows that all the other chassis bit is basically what was on the computer, how that's fitting in there nice and snug and side to side. So we'll get it cleaned up, we'll get it welded in, and then we'll move on to the back bit. Alright, well there you go, bit of welding and blending. A nice looking bit there for the front diff carrier bit. I guess that's really like just the power of using Fusion's 360 to design the stuff like that. Looks like a pretty complicated piece, but you know, drawing it up on there and then a couple of bends and welds. Now I did weld it up off the frame mainly because with that gap, if there was any shrinkage, I wanted to do the shrinkage on this piece only. I was a bit concerned if I tacked it into the frame and then done all the welding, it would pull the frame in, which obviously without any welding that was showing that the frame was where it was supposed to be. So I've sanded up the frame a little bit, we'll chuck it back up there and we'll see how it fits now. Alright, well as you can see that's gone back in there really good. For whatever reason that second bolt hole actually lined up a little bit better as well. Not really too sure why, but anyway, that went in pretty good. So now we'll just throw a couple of tacks on it for the time being and then we'll move on to the back section. Well, as you see there, that vinegar does a really good job. Just gets that mill scale off and you just wipe it off with a rag. So give that a quick little sand up and she'll be nice, clean, fresh steel to work with. Now, because of my infinite wisdom on the computer, I've done this piece as a bit of a curve. So I jumped back on Fusion yesterday and projected some lines, and basically this is the shape that has to get all shaped to. So I'm going to bend it around and tack it on the bottom on this. So basically that flat piece has got to become a curve like that, and then this flat piece has got to go and curve into that bit. So it's going to be pretty hard to film and do because I don't have a workbench at the moment because it's got a massive chassis on it. So I'm just going to bash that out. I'm going to get this bent onto these and then we'll cut back once that's done. Rightio, well, I've been going backwards and forwards a bit. I've got a bit of a bend on here based off that template that I cut, and it started to get a bit confusing and wasn't really understanding what was going on. So this piece here will not fit, and I had to go back to the computer and jump back into Fusion and have a look at the model again. So when I cut this piece with this main body, these two inner pieces weren't actually part of the chassis, so this outer one came up and around and curved around, and that didn't exist. So this little dogleg here, this little area here actually clashes with the chassis, so I'm going to change my approach a little bit. So one thing I was also confused of is why that had the radius there. So that radius, when it was bent up over the top of that radius actually matched where that piece was arcing around. So that is actually also too long. So I'm going to trim away at this piece until it fits into the chassis where it needs to go. The front one should be okay because it's in front of that bend, so that should be the right size. So I'm going to trim away at this and get it in, and then once that's fitting and they're both fitting in where they need to go, I'll tack them onto my bottom piece and then shape this piece. So it's taken me a while to work that out, but now that I know what's going on, it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, well that bit's in. I started attacking it and then just got a bit carried away while I had the old bucket head on. So that's fully welded in, just been, and I've shaped this piece now so that fits. So we'll get that welded in and then we'll look at making that bottom, or the back mount, sorry, for the diff. And then we can do the top curve piece on there, and then we'll be able to get the diff into it and see if we can modify that other piece that had that real thin ugly bit. So we'll burn this in and we'll get in there. Well, we are moving forward. I've got that piece is all welded in. I've got that top plate on there. It's all looking pretty good. I've got this hole now. I don't know why. Don't really know why, but on the computer it doesn't look that bad. In real life, it's really throwing the symmetry of the chassis off. So I think in the future I'll cut a piece out and I'll weld that in there. So I mean, there is going to be a massive air tank in here and it's going to be under the van. You're not going to see it, so I'm going to wait until it's off the table and to do the final cleanup, and I'll decide if I'm going to do anything about it then. But now, so now you can see in here where the slot is on that control arm. So where that slot is, it's on a couple of the pickup points. They have these sort of cammed bolts. So I guess that's for adjusting your toe and camber and stuff. So on the factory subframe, they've got these little tabs here which sort of locate on that and allow it to move. So I'm going to harvest them. I could make them, but they've got like a bit of a slot there with a square on one end. Now I could make it, but I mean they're sitting here. So I'm going to go ahead, cut these off, and then we'll get them welded onto those bits. And then once that's all done, we'll lift the diff up and have a look at that back bracket for that. Well, I've got them all cleaned up and into some weld through primer. Now, while I was cleaning them up, I noticed the number stamped in, so 051. While I was waiting for the primer to dry, I done a quick Google search and found out that you can actually just buy these. So if I was a bit more prepared and onto it, I could have just brought these instead of hacking them off that subframe. But they're on the subframe, came with a donor car, they're free. So now we'll just go through, burn 4 of these on, and then we can look at getting that diff in. Right, well that's still the little camber adjusty bits welded on. So now it is time to fit the diff. So I've removed all this other part of the jig which hasn't need to be there the whole time, and I've been working around it, and it just dawned on me that it actually doesn't need to be there. So a lot of this could be made a bit easier, but we are now going to get the diff on the forklift because they are bloody heavy things, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to drop it in from the top. So we'll see, otherwise it's going to be a bit of a mission to get it up from underneath. So we'll get on the forklift and we'll see if it goes in. Well, I can tell you right now that it does not fit. But it's not a major, so I am definitely very glad that I did not weld this piece in, because getting in to trim this would have made the job a lot harder. At the moment I can just drop the diff down and do a little bit of clearancing. The holes and everything are perfect. It's just not quite enough clearance for the diff. We'll get the camera up there so I can show you what's going on. It's not too much of a major, just a little bit of a trim, and then we're about to get it in. So I've almost got this bolt in, but it won't quite go up high enough because it is touching, see, just in there on both sides. There is room at the top here, not a great deal, so I'm going to do like a little scallop out of here, and then I'll probably get some 1-inch tape. I'll just run it along this edge up to here, down there, and I'll do a little bit of a cut here and here. This piece actually tapers down towards here, so I don't have to go too high, I don't think, to get the clearance I need. So we'll mark this up and we'll get that cut out. So, obviously, a bit of a bummer, doesn't just go straight in, but you know, I think the issue, I use the scan data, like looking from the front, but I think that first, it comes up in that first angle over, I think that's just too aggressive, which is why I'm having the issues. So we'll just get some tape, give it a quick trim, and you know, be only a couple of hundred people out there that know that it didn't fit. So quick trim, get it in. But yeah, like I say, very glad I'm not having to mess with this piece as well, because that would have been a major pain in the arse. Alrighty, so you can see we've just got a little bit of clearance there now. Yeah, you can see there's a little bit of clearance. I'd still like more, but we can get the bolts in and it's all lining up good. Once it's off the table and I can actually stand back and look at it, I'll do some more trimming. Doesn't need a great deal more, but I'd like to have a little bit more clearance than what there is. But at the moment, the angle I'm looking at it, I'm concerned that if I keep going, it's just going to end up looking weird. So aesthetically, I want to be able to stand back, mark it, look at it, and make sure it's going to flow and look good. So now the last piece of the diff is this one, which I'm going to be doing what I thought I was going to be doing. I'm basically just going to follow these lines up, chop it, chop that one, and then we'll see how it fits. Right, well, I've got that bolted up in there. Now, see, that's sort of hanging down. Now, that's sort of hanging down there. I've just jumped over the computer, and for whatever reason, it's like that on the computer, and I've done nothing about it. So, can't leave it like that. That looks horrendous. So I'll put a little bit of a mark on it. I'll try and do like a nice little contour down and off, and we'll trim it up, and then we're about to tack it in. Right, well, I was filming away there and I didn't realise, but the battery went flat on me. So missed the last little bit, but basically I think it caught doing the rear bracket on this side. Only other thing I've done really is the bracket on this side. Got that fit up. Still a bit more welding to do, but like a lot of things, I'll do that once it's off the table and I can spin it around and make life easier for myself. But just been around and taken off all the little temporary control arm things. But it's all looking really good. So yeah, that's another little project ticked off the box. The chassis now has a diff in it, so it's really just all these projects are just one little job after another, and eventually you get there. So that's, as far as the chassis goes, that's the major. Oh, nah, still got to do shocks. That's going to be a bit of a mission, but most of the major fabrication work on the chassis is now done. So I think we'll leave it there for this episode. On the next one, we'll finish off all the control arms, get all the last of the brackets for all of that on, and then gotta say, I am pretty stoked with how it's looking. Oh, she's a pretty wild looking chassis, that's for sure. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, share it with all your mates. Before you go to bed, play my playlist, just play it in the background. I need to somehow get 4,000 hours of watch time. Seems like a bit of a struggle, bit of a hard target to get. Ooh. Yeah, it seems like a bit of a hard target to get the old 4,000 hours. I sort of normally sit around 1,000 per 12 months. So yeah, help us out. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you on the next episode.